In our last two videos, we introduced the principles of logarithms that I have written here, and then we looked at rewriting a single logarithm as a sum, difference, and or product of logarithms. In this lesson, we're going to go the other way. We're looking at if I have a sum or difference or products of logarithms, rewriting them as single logarithms. And as we saw in our previous lesson, we're just writing one logarithmic statement and then writing an equivalent logarithmic statement. And we're just trying to train our brains to recognize things that are the same. We're not trying to solve for any variables at this point. We'll do that in our next few lessons. So for instance, let's say that I start with the logarithm base b of x plus the logarithm base b of y, and I want to rewrite that as a single logarithm. The first thing that I have to do every time when I'm rewriting as a single logarithm is that I must make sure that my base is the same. None of these rules work if the base is not the same. So after I've double checked, I have base b, the same base. I think about, I have two separate logarithms with addition. How can I use one of my properties to rewrite as a single logarithm? Pause the video and work this one. And I see because I have addition of two separate logarithms, I can write that as multiplication with a single logarithm, x times y. You try this one. Logarithm base 7 of x divided by x minus 3. And keep in mind on this one, be very careful that this whole denominator is a single term, so it has to stay together. You try this one. And we see, oh, I'm going the wrong way here. All right, let's go ahead and do this one. We have the logarithm base 7 of x minus the logarithm base 7 of this whole thing, x minus 3. So we saw that when we had the division, this was one whole term, so when we did the subtraction, this had to stay together. Let's work on the opposite direction. Let's say that we have the logarithm base 2 of x plus 1 plus the logarithm base 2 of x minus 1. And I want you to rewrite that as a single logarithm. Pause the video and rewrite. We have the same base, 2, 2. So we write our single logarithm, logarithm base 2. And because we have addition, our first term is x plus 1. So it will be x plus 1 times our second one, x minus 1. And all of this goes together. So if I wanted, I could rewrite that as logarithm base 2 and actually do my multiplication there, FOIL out x plus 1 times x minus 1, and have x squared minus 1. As you're doing these, it's very, very, very important that you realize that you are not multiplying. This parenthesis here does not mean multiplication. It means that you're taking the logarithm base 2 of x squared minus 1. In other words, 2 to what power equals x squared minus 1. So the fact that these things are adjacent or that you have parentheses does not mean multiplication. Let's do another one. Let's say that we have 2 times the logarithm base c of w plus 3 times the logarithm base c of z minus 1/2 the logarithm base c of w. And we want to rewrite this as a single logarithm. On this one, we have multiplication out front, which remember becomes an exponent. We also have addition and then subtraction. We do have the same base here, here, and here, all c. So see if you can write this as a single logarithm. Pause the video and give it a try. All right, we have a single logarithm, logarithm base c. Let's look at our first term. We have w. The 2 out front becomes w squared. The addition becomes multiplication. The 3 becomes an exponent on z. The subtraction is division. The exponent is the exponent on w. So we're taking the logarithm base c of this entire thing. And we only write logarithm base c a single time. But on this one, we have to do a little bit more. Notice that I have w here and w here. So we know that if we have x cubed divided by x squared, that's the same thing as x to the 3 minus 2 power, which is x to the first, which is x. So we know that if we're doing division with the same base, we subtract my exponents. And that's what we're doing here. We're doing division of w to a power over w of another power. So I can rewrite the logarithm base c, and I can have w squared divided by w to the 1/2 is the same thing as w to the 2 minus 1/2. Well, 2 is the same thing as 4/2. Minus 1/2, which is w to the 3/2 power. So coming back over here, logarithm base c, w squared over w to the 1/2 is w to the 3/2, and z cubed doesn't change. All right, so on this one, we used all of our rules. We used the addition rule, we used the subtraction rule, we used the power rule, and then we had to simplify because we had the same variable to powers. In our next lesson, we're going to actually use what we've learned in these last few lessons, recognizing equivalent statements,